Hello again, Kerbal Knots. This is Kerbal Space Program, the first Kerbal in orbit. What I have here is the Vostok 1. I don't speak Russian, so I probably botched that up. But as usual, I'm following the tutorial located on the Kerbal Space Program wiki. And we've got Jebediah all suited up and ready to go, as he should be the first Kerbal to orbit the planet Kerbin. But this time, we're going to try to circularize our orbit a little bit better than Sputnik, and try not to hit Sputnik first and foremost. And the first hurdle is getting this thing into space, so Jebediah looks ready to go. We'll throttle up to 66%, and wow, this thing takes off like a beast. Much like Sputnik, the bottom is propelled by 4 radial-mounted engines, and we are climbing up into the Kerbal sky. Jebediah seems to be excited about being the first Kerbal in space. It'd be kind of freaky to be, the first person in space, like, I'm sure they set up animals first, or, tests, and like, it's okay, we tested this stuff, you'll come back safe. But still, Jebediah seems to be up for the challenge, and this Kerbal rocket is ready to go. There goes the 4 engines, and we fire. But we're still not high enough to make our gravity turn, so we'll just burn a few thousand more meters. And once we hit our 10,000 meter mark, we pitch over to the 90 and start gaining speed. 1 minute into the mission, and all engines, all one of them, are go. Take a look at our orbit now. Apoapс is at 18,000, 19,000, so we are climbing. Make sure to set our stage fuel so we know exactly when this second stage will burn out. It's a 3-stage rocket, so this is going to do the moderate lifting. Those 4 engines did the heavy lifting off the launch pad. The second engine will get us to our apoapse, and then our final engine shall circularize our orbit and get us nice and stable. And we shouldn't have to worry about Sputnik over there floating around the outside, as its highly eccentric orbit shall get it away from Kerbin before we have to worry about it. There goes the second stage, and now we're firing our last stage. So this rocket has shrunk a ton. It must have got wet in cold weather, but we're still climbing. That's good. 70,000 meters. Once again, I'm probably shooting for 90,000 meters here. That way we can stay above the atmosphere and not go tumbling back in. So I cut engines at 85 because I'm pretty sure I'm going to gain some altitude when I do this burn. Using the maneuver node there to get our apoapse and paraapse alongside the planet. 3,000 meters ain't bad. We can definitely work from that. See what Jebediah's view is. The capsule window is really small. The Apollo astronauts couldn't actually see anything until the escape tower was jettisoned, but no escape tower on this guy. Jebediah wouldn't have it any other way. See, he's all happy. He don't care if he explodes in a million pieces. He goes out in a blaze of glory. And there's the planet Kerbin beneath us. There's the horizon there. Nice view, even though it's kind of limited. The capsule feels really, really cramped. And I'm pretty sure the capsule's back in. We're compromised, not for comfort, but for functionality, as the government tends to do. But we are pointing at our blue orbit indicator, or our maneuver node indicator. We need 1,100 meters a second for delta V. So we're burning at our half and half mark, at our 30-second mark, as that was going to be a 1-minute and 10-second burn. This engine takes a bit to get up to speed. That's why you want to fire it a bit early. And looks like my apoapse is dropping, which I certainly wasn't counted on, but that should increase as we pass it. But the atomic engine is even slower than this, but it's perfect for interplanetary travel, which is in the Kerbal's future, as it doesn't burn fuel as fast, but its thrust isn't the best. I turn off the maneuver node there because I know I'm just going to keep burning prograde. That's the open yellow marker down there right at the 90. And our orbit is extending around the sides of the planet. And just a moment, we will have a parapse. And there we go. And as I feared, the parapse is spinning around, and now we're at 109,000 at our highest point. So my next concern is, am I going to drop back into the atmosphere? And it doesn't look like we are, so I speed up time. Not losing altitude on the parapse, that's a quick way to make sure that you're not losing orbital speed. And our orbital speed there is the same. So I add a maneuver node to sort of circularize our orbit at around 100,000 meters. A nice 100-kilometer climb. And it's real finicky when you get to the just a small amount of delta V and you'll miss it completely. We're dealing in tenths of meters a second there. But 13 minutes and 20 seconds to our next burn, and it's only going to be a second to raise up 30,000 meters. That's quite incredible for this little guy. So we point to our maneuver node and get ready to accelerate time. The good thing about time acceleration is that your capsule stops its rotation and movement. So if you ever find yourself in a spin that you can't quite get out of and you're outside the atmosphere, just go time acceleration and your capsule will settle down nicely. So here we go, 19 seconds to our burn. There's a nice sunrise pointing right at the 90. And it's going to be a real short burn. And if I had a RCS on this thing, I might actually use the RCS thrusters for fine control, but we've got this little engine, so a little dab will do us. And there we go. And I have a bad habit of when I cut the throttle, I also hit the C key, which takes you inside the capsule and shows you what Jebediah is seeing. So we're at 115 by 109. And there's Sputnik out there. And we can see that Sputnik's incline is 11 degrees. So if we were to intercept Sputnik, we wouldn't fire at the 90. We'd have to go 11 degrees difference. But that's neither here nor there. Nice blue ocean below us and the sun out there silhouetting our capsule as we go to orbit. So now Jebediah would just cruise around Kerbal for a bit, but since we're in a stable orbit, I'll go ahead and plan our maneuver to get home. You want to, the Kerbal Space Center, if you see the Africa continent right there, the right side, there's a little outcropping. And that's where the Kerbal Space Center is, right on the equator there. But I want to shoot past it because as we dip through the atmosphere, we lose our speed, and that throws off our projections a bit. So I aim a little long, orientate myself to the maneuver node there, and I'll need 500 meters a second delta V to get to the center of the ocean. Speeding along, there's the moon. If we were heading to the moon, as soon as we see it, we just fire, and we'll get there eventually. But that's in a couple later missions once we establish docking and get a free return trajectory established. Now we're burning retrograde, scrubbing off our speed, dropping below 2,000 meters a second. We see our orbit there dropping into the ocean. This you can sort of freehand. And there's good. And that will do, engine. That will do. Get rid of our maneuver node so we can see exactly where we would land at 1,700 meters a second. Of course, we're going to be losing that speed when we get into the atmosphere. But I'm not exactly comfortable with that. So I shoot a little further out to the ocean. In hindsight, I shouldn't have done that. But I figure since I have the fuel to waste, no sense in letting a mostly full capsule crash into the ocean. So we detach and we let Jebediah come back home. So we'll speed up time once more. And then once it goes to, you see our time projection drops to 4 arrows instead of 10. That's because we're below 60,000 meters. So we're on physical time acceleration now. Still not scrubbing off speed yet, but there we go. There's the Kerbal Space Center on the beach. And there goes our fuel stage down there careening into the ocean. We get the nice re-entry effects as we wave by Kerbal Space Center and we deploy our parachute. If this was real life, this would be very bad. The parachute would snap off, we would burn it up, and poor Jebediah would meet his fate. His face would meet the ocean is what would happen. But our parachute's deployed and we take a look at the sunset over the Kerbal Space Center and that nice mountain range that was added in 2.1. Still dropping speed. There's the second landing strip over there on that little island. And just as I go... Oh, Jebediah, you okay, man? Astronauts can swim, right? That's part of their training? Oh, he was killed. Well, luckily with the new update, Jebediah will come back for another day, but sad times indeed. Don't use time acceleration with a parachute, folks. We'll catch you next time.